Hello, this is Mrs. Blaufuss here, and this is lesson 4.6. And in this lesson, we're talking about parallels and equations of lines. So this is review, if you remember, from Algebra 1, either last year or some of you, this was a couple years ago when you learned this for the first time. But when we write an equation of a line, we have several different forms. The one we're going to focus on today is the slope-intercept form. And slope-intercept form is the form y equals mx plus b. The y-intercept, that is the point on the y-axis that the line crosses. Sometimes lines will be parallel to the y-axis, and if they're parallel to the y-axis, we call those vertical lines, and they do not have a slope. But otherwise, if it's not a vertical line, it will at some point cross the y-axis, and that's the y-intercept. So the y-intercept will have the coordinates 0 for the x-coordinate and b, which is what we call the y-intercept. And the linear equation is an equation whose graph forms a straight line. So in each of these equations, we're going to rewrite the equation so that it is in slope-intercept form. Now, for a couple of these, we don't rewrite it because it's either a vertical or horizontal line. But for the others, we're going to write them in slope-intercept form. And we do this so that we can easily identify the slope, which is m, and the y-intercept, which is b. So let's look at this first one, and in this first linear equation, it's already in the form y equals mx plus b, so that's our slope-intercept form, y equals 1/2 times x plus 5. So looking at this and looking at slope-intercept form, we identify the slope as 1/2. Okay, that's what we're multiplying x by. And then our y-intercept is equal to 5. In the second one, if you think of what is happening on this graph, there is nothing being multiplied by x, or it's 0 times x plus 3. So it doesn't matter what x is, our y is always going to be 3. Okay, so this is a horizontal line. And therefore, since it's a horizontal line, the slope is equal to 0. When x is 0, that's our y-intercept, whatever our y value is when x is 0. And here, when x is 0, our y is 3. When x is anything, our y is 3, and that's why it's a horizontal line. And let's look at the third one. Here we're saying x equals -2. So this one we can't write in slope-intercept form. It's a vertical line. Okay, so this means it's going straight up and down. Therefore, the slope is undefined. If you remember when we talked about how to calculate slope, we took the change in the y divided by the change in the x. And here, since there is no change in x, x is always going to be -2. You can't divide by 0, therefore the slope is undefined, or the slope is a null set. And since it's a vertical line, there is no y-intercept. It runs parallel to the y-axis. Okay, and now this last one, we need to put this into slope-intercept form, which means we need to solve for y. So in order to do this, we need to add, I always like to get y positive first. That's always my first goal, just because I hate to work with negatives. So I'm going to add 3y to both sides, and I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. So I get 2x minus 12 equals 3y. Now I need to divide both sides by 3. And when I divide both sides by 3, remember that you have to divide each term by 3. So we get 2/3 x minus 12 divided by 3, which is 4, is equal to y. And now we have it in slope-intercept form. Y equals 2/3 x minus 4. So our slope, or our m, is equal to 2/3, and our y-intercept, or our b, is equal to -4. Now let's look at all of these equations and let's graph them. When we graph an equation, a linear equation, we need 2 points. Our 2 points are going to be, the first is going to be our y-intercept. So in this first one, our y-intercept is 5. And then the second point we're going to get by using our slope. And in this first example, our slope is 1/2. So that's rise over run, or change in y divided by change in x. And we can go up 1 and over 2. Or we can go down 1 and to the left 2. Because down is negative and to the left is negative. So -1 over -2 is still a positive 1/2. And positive 1 over positive 2 is still a positive 1/2. So here's our graph of this first linear equation. So we can draw our line, and there you can see the graph of our linear equation. Okay, let's look at the second graph. We have y equals 3. If we wrote this in slope-intercept form, we would say y equals 0 times x plus 3. No matter what x is, 0 times x is always going to be 0. Okay, so it doesn't matter what our x value is in this problem, but no matter what our x value is, our y value is going to be 3. Okay, so it intersects at the y-axis at y equals 3, but it's always y equals 3. Okay, no matter what x is, our y value is 3. The third equation is perpendicular to that. So it doesn't matter what y is, but our x value is always going to be -2. And then our last equation, when we rewrote this in slope-intercept form, we got y equals 2/3 x minus 4. So we're going to start at the -4, that's our y-intercept, and then we're going to use the slope to find our next point. So we're going to go up 2 and to the right 3. And we could do that again, go up 2 and to the right 3. It brings us a little bit off our graph, but, and then we can draw a line connecting those points. Try these next ones on your own, so you can pause the video while you work, and then you can unpause for the solution. Okay, let's look at this first example, y equals -x plus 3. That's already in slope-intercept form, so nothing we need to do with that. The slope of this is -1 because it's -1 times x. The y-intercept is 3, that's our b. Okay, we're adding 3 to the -x. In the second one, we have x plus 0.5y, which is 1/2 y. That's equal to 2. So if we rewrite this into slope-intercept form, we need to subtract x from both sides. And then when we divide by 0.5, that's the same as multiplying by 2. 0.5 is the same as 1/2. And when you divide by 1/2, it's the same as multiplying by its reciprocal, which is the same as multiplying by, in this case, 2. The slope of this, once we have it in slope-intercept form, is -2, and the y-intercept is +4. In the next one, we have a horizontal line. Okay, so that would be like y equals 0 times x minus 1. It's a horizontal line. In a horizontal line, the slope is 0. And the y-intercept of this equation is -1 because no matter what x is, y is equal to -1. And then the last one, x equals 5, that's a vertical line. And in a vertical line going straight up and down, there is no slope because remember, slope is defined as the change in x divided by the change, the change in y divided by the change in x. And in a vertical line, there is no change in x. So you are taking the change in y divided by 0, and anything divided by 0 is undefined. And in this case, this is a line parallel to the y-axis, so there is no y-intercept. Okay, so let's look at our graphs. The first one, we have a y-intercept of 3, so we're going to graph that point first, where y equals 3. And then we're going to use the slope of -1. So down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to all those points are on your graph. Okay, in our second one, we have a y-intercept of 4, so we're going to plot that point first. And then our slope is -2x, or -2. So that's -2 down 2 over 1. Okay, -2 over 1. -2 over 1. To get a slope of -2. The third one, we can see that it's a horizontal line. Y is always equal to -1. And then in the last one, we have a vertical line. Y is always, or x is always equal to 5. In this next example, we're writing an equation of a line that's parallel to the graph y equals 2x minus 5. What we know about parallel lines is that parallel lines have the same slope. So in this y equals 2x minus 5, in this linear equation, a line, or the slope of this particular line is 2. So in this line, the given line, y equals 2x minus 5, we know that the slope equals 2. So for a line that's parallel to this line, so something that's parallel to a line that has a slope of 2 will also have a slope of 2. So now we have to find the y-intercept. Okay, that's what we need to do to write our equation. We already know the slope, but we need to find the y-intercept. We're given this point, 3, 7. And that means that our x and y coordinate, when our x is 3, our y is 7. So given this point, we can set x equal to 3 and y equal to 7. We already know that the slope is equal to 2 from up here. We talked about that already. So we're going to use the equation y equals mx plus b. We're going to use this equation y equals mx plus b to solve for b. Because a line that's parallel to 2x minus 5 but is a different line will have a different y-intercept. So parallel lines have the same slope, but they have different y-intercepts. Okay, so we need to find the y-intercept of our new line. And to do this, we're just going to substitute what we know. We know x is 3, we know y is 7, we know m is 2. We don't know b, so we'll solve for it. Okay, so when we rewrite y equals mx plus b, we know that y is 7. We know that m is 2. And we know that x is 3. So y equals mx plus b becomes 7 equals 2 times 3 plus b. And so now we're just going to simplify. 7 equals 6 plus b. We're going to subtract 6 from both sides, and we get 1 is equal to b. So our new equation for a line parallel to y equals 2x minus 5, is y equals 2x plus 1. Because our y-intercept that we just found for that line that goes through the point 3, 7 is 1. So there's our y-intercept. Here's our slope. And then we still have an independent and a dependent variable, like you will in any linear equation. Okay, Okay, try the second one on your own. You can pause the video while you work, and you can unpause for the solution. The first step we're going to do is we're going to put this equation into slope-intercept form. So we have 3x plus y equals 6. We need to rewrite it so that this equation is in slope-intercept form. So we get y equals negative 3x plus 6. Okay, from there we can identify the slope. We can identify the slope as negative 3 for the given equation, and then we can find the slope, find the y-intercept of our parallel line. So first I defined all my variables. My m is negative 3, my x is 1, and my y is 4. Now I'm going to use slope-intercept form to solve for b. And I've solved for b, and I got b is equal to 7. And now my last step is to use my new slope-intercept and the slope that my new y-intercept and the slope that I already had to write a new equation. And the equation of my line that is parallel to negative 3x plus 6 that also goes through point 1, 4. Okay, so it's an equation that has the same slope but a different y-intercept, is y equals negative 3x plus 7. So please jot down any questions that you have, and we can discuss them next time I see you in class. Thank you.